So in this segment, we're going to be discussing kind of why the railway workers, in a sense, really don't have a choice but to strike because of the changes the government are making. This goes far beyond just pay. This is about safety and worker rights here. Much beyond just, the rampant inflation that we're seeing and the fact that the government are offering pay rises. It's the, quote, modernisation that the government keep pushing. It's not modernisation is going to make things way more dangerous. But we'll cut to Dempsey.
Then in the middle of all of this, over Christmas we heard there's going to be a near 6% rise in rail fares. I mean, what do you say to that?
Well, this is the strange thing. So they say we can't have decent pay rises because it's going to cause what they call a wage price spiral. And in most of the big disputes you're seeing, that's completely untrue. So prices are already set by government in the rail industry. If we get a decent pay rise, it's got no association whatsoever with the cost of fares. The government has a policy of having inflation plus rises in fares and has had that for years. So
yeah, it's meant to go up by the retail price index. That's why fares go up every year. Despite what's going on in the industry, the industry might have made savings from whatever costs that they managed to do, and the government will continue to put fares up by RPI. It's ridiculous.
They've already built in inflationary pressures into the cost of travelling on the railway, and we think fares actually should be taken down. And they could afford to do that because of the huge profits that are going on in the rail industry. They could reduce the cost of tickets for the travelling public, and they could pay workers a decent pay rise. But instead they choose to put the fares up to keep the profits going to these private companies, and they tell us that we're the ones responsible for a wage price spiral, and it's then putting the prices up.
These companies are still making profit year after year. The government continues to subsidise their profiteering, and suddenly they can't give a pay rise to their workers despite the fact that the fares go up by RPI every year. It doesn't make sense.
We also hear that the conditions that you're asking for, such as a guard on a train, not driver-only operations, would put pressure on the railways to put ticket prices up. Is that true?
Well, no, they're putting ticket prices up because the government mandates fares go up every year by RPI plus. And that's happened for years and years and years. That's why we've got the most overpriced fares in Western Europe, and that's why we've got a poor service in terms of the value you get for what you're paying. It doesn't have to be like that. They could reduce fares. Where the money's going out of this industry and profits, that's where we could make some savings, and that's where we could reinvest that money into bringing fares down and paying the workers to run a decent rail service.
And that's why nationalisation is so important, because instead of these companies making profits for running shoddy service, let's be honest now, the train service in this country sucks. They're consistently late, and not by a minute or two. Sometimes they're late by 5, and you're like, is this the train I'm meant to be going on? It's rare I take trains, but always seem to be an issue when I am. So you could run a better service, run it cheaper, and we choose not to because these companies need to make money.
You don't think that your dispute is costing the passenger?
No, it's not costing the passenger. The government's doing that directly. They're putting the fares up today, and they would have done that irrespective of whatever pay deal we got. They did it last year, they did it the year before last, and they've done it every year since we've had a privatised railway. And we've campaigned every year for them to stop doing that and actually bring the prices down and make our transport system affordable.
Much of this dispute is about conditions.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about the conditions that maybe, I don't know, Peter, who's sitting in Bolton, might understand?
This stuff here is really important because he talks about the train fares and how we can have a better system, but this is pretty scary stuff here.
For my members in Network Rail, they're quite difficult, so they want to reduce the frontline maintenance workforce on the railway by a third. That's huge. They want to cut maintenance scheduled tasks. These are people going out to inspect the railway to make sure it's not broken and is safe. They want
to. Can you imagine? Right, you're on a train. These trains go quite fast, right? I think it's they can go about 60 miles per hour or whatever speed they go. Imagine the train tracks aren't safe. You're risking a lot of people's lives there, a lot of people's. And there are some famous cases of, I think it was a train driver in Spain who took a bend too quickly and the train got derailed. These are extreme stories that happen very rarely, but what you don't want is a train track to be unsafe and for an accident to happen, and the only way you can avoid that is by routine maintenance. So to cut the amount of routine maintenance and the staff that carry out routine maintenance is honestly one of the dumbest things this government can do, and it shows you that it's a government that's very reactive and very stupid compared to one that is very proactive and takes preventative measures. But we're surrounded by morons in this country.
Cut that work in half, just cut it in half. This is at a time when funding is being cut, and they're asking the people who are going to remain in the industry to work a lot more unsocial hours. And right now our members already work some of the most unsocial shift patterns in the country, over 24 hours, over weekends, most week.
I can imagine they would have to work in the hours where people don't typically travel as well, which would be very late at night, which is very difficult to manage as a human being who actually probably wants to have a life.
Weekends they work, working nights and all the rest of it. They want to increase the amount of antisocial hours people are working by about 30% or more. So that means people who've got families and routines, it's going to disrupt their lives. It means people are going to fall sick earlier in their working life. And on top of that, what they want to do is, because they're only going to work people so hard and work them in unsocial shifts, which damages your health and causes you to really knacker your body too young, they want to bring in a scheme where they can just sack people off with a justifiable retirement age. So those are the problems our people are facing. And for a lot of our people, they're telling us this ain't about the money for us anymore. We just can't do this. I had a rep, someone I've known for 20 years, say, Eddie, I'm telling you, I can't work these shifts. It's either going to cost me my life and my health, or it's going to cost me my marriage. We just can't work any more on social hour shifts. So that's what...
And, you can imagine that if you're in a relationship, if you have children, especially, working on social hours, like, how do you make time for your family when you're going to be out, in the dead of night trying to fix stuff and whatever, and then, your kids who are there during the day, you're going to be asleep. Like, you won't have many family interactions at all, especially if you have a young family. So to kind of push these maintenance workers to be trying to live their lives like this, it's just wild. Honestly, the government clearly do not care, and the only time people will care about this stuff is when an accident happens and they're like, oh my god, I can't believe this happened, all of these people died, what was wrong with it? And then once they do the once they see what happened with the tracks, they'll be like, oh, maintenance wasn't carried out. And no doubt they'll blame the staff for not carrying out routine maintenance when their hours, that when their staff and the staff was cut and the amount of times they're meant to go and check on things has been cut. It's just honestly so stupid.
What the real problem is for our members in Network Rail.
I mean, the argument from, I suppose, a lot of people in the country would be that they are also being forced to work unsociable hours in their employment, and so therefore you should too. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, we already do. So our members work 39 weeks of night shifts. They work 65 they can be rostered up to whole weekend shifts in a cost of over the course of a year. That's a lot of unsocial hours working. They do it over 24 hours a day, different shift patterns. I know a lot of people do that too, but you have got to have some balance around that, because shift workers tend to lose about 10 years of healthy life at the end of their career. We see people getting sick a lot earlier, and this isn't just difficult shifts they're working. This is heavy manual work they're doing at all times of the night and day. So there needs to be a balance. The work has to be done, but you don't have to kill people in the process of doing it through these unsocial hours.
No, I thought we as a society kind of came together and realised that people don't have to live to work. I just, the points he makes there are just really important, that people don't want to live like that. And the ones who are like, oh, well, I have to do unsocial hours too, is like, do you have to though? Like, really, is your the job you do that important? Or is it the case that your employer is treating you like a mug because they know they can get away with it? And instead of wanting better conditions for yourself and other people, you happily accept being treated that way, and you expect other people to be treated the same. Because you are either not part of a union, or you just aren't willing to fight for any better rights for yourselves and your colleagues. Maybe that's the case, that you're too weak to fight back. I don't know, but clearly these members are part of a union. A union can give you strength, and they're willing to fight back because they don't want to work any more unsociable hours. Doing more heavy manual lifting and taking years off their future. And so 100% I respect the unions for this, and the answers he gives are pretty solid. And shouts out to Politics Joe for giving, I think, Lynch and Dempsey a lot of airtime in covering the stuff they want to cover. It can be a bit echo chambery because Politics Joe only really has a YouTube channel, but at least they can kind of get their message out without having some clown like, what's his name, Richard Madley or whatever his name is, talking absolute drivel. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.